So today's storytime video is more serious, and I have a lot of stories in my arsenal that I want to tell and put out into the world because I think that they're entertaining or funny, but this one is a lot more serious, obviously, and if you would be triggered by the talk of miscarriages, and baby talk in general, I don't really think I would recommend watching this one. I took a pregnancy test somewhat recently, and I'll talk about it on my vlog channel a little bit more. My vlog's about it today because today my period started, but I haven't had my period in like 2 months, and my husband was kind of excited. You know, he's asking me like, do you feel like you could be pregnant? Because we're not trying right now, but simultaneously, like, it's such an exciting prospect, you know what I mean? And I was like, no, like, I know what that feels like, and I'm not. So I want to talk about the time I was pregnant and what happened. And this is a sad story, and it's not being posted to garner any attention or anyone to feel sorry for me because it's something I've dealt with in my own time. But I do think that maybe by telling my story and getting it out there, I could help someone else. And this just, it isn't something I've talked about. You know, my channel is very like happy-go-lucky, very positive, but hard things happen in life and hard things have happened to all of us. And this is just something really hard that I went through and something I experienced, and I'm just gonna talk about it. So it was really shortly after I moved to Kansas. I had just started my first job, well, my first real job after my story time that I made about my boss from hell, my like psychopath boss who was worst thing in my entire life. I started my real job working at Target at the time, actually, and it was one of the most fun jobs I ever had, and it's really sad that it kind of had to end the way that it did. I'd been really busy. I'd been working for about maybe 3 months there, and I guess like it was just because I was going and I was working as much as humanly possible and taking as much overtime as they would give me, and also, you know, trying to start on YouTube at the time. I was just busy, and I don't think I noticed at first until it was about 2 months into me not having a period. I don't even really remember how it came up, but like I was talking to Tyler and he was like, when was the last time that you had, you know, a period? And at the time we were still so newly married, like we didn't really even talk about stuff like that. Like, we were very safe in that whole department, so it wasn't really something that even came up. I tend to be very irregular, so I kind of assumed it was something along those lines, and it just wasn't in my head, you know what I mean? It wasn't something I even thought about, and that's just like what is so crazy to me is like looking back now, I'm like, you are so stupid for not thinking that you were, but it started off about 2 months into me not having a period, and before my husband and I even had the discussion. Bear in mind that I'm 19, I got married super duper young for no reason other than I wanted to be married. I started having these bizarre dreams, and they started off all being the same, and they progressed, and it sounds so creepy to think about now. They would all start off differently, but it always ended with me remembering, oh my God, I have a baby. Like, it was like the whole dream I was doing something and it was completely unrelated to baby anything, and I would remember in my head, oh my God, I have a baby. Oh my God, I have a baby. I have to get home to my baby. I've been like leaving it alone this whole time, and it was like this blind panic, this rush of getting back to this child I had like completely and totally forgotten about. The weirdest thing was it was always a boy, like always a boy, and it always looked exactly, he always looked exactly the same way. And I'm sorry, there's like hair all over my face. My dogs are shedding beasts right now. So that one happened, and then the other one that I would have a lot is I would find a baby, and again, always a baby boy. I would always find a baby doing something. Like, I would be at work going through my stuff and doing my job when I found a baby, and no one was gonna take care of it. I was like, who left this here? And everyone's like, I don't get paid enough for this. And so I would wind up taking the baby, and that was always where the dream would end. And after having these dreams consecutively, night after night after night for like 2 weeks straight, I called my best friend at the time and I was like, I think I'm gonna take a pregnancy test. And she lived in Georgia when I lived in Kansas, so she like virtually held my hand while I took this pregnancy test, and I didn't know how to do it correctly, so the first one came back inconclusive because I didn't pee on it right. And I was talking to her and I lied and I was like, oh, it came out negative, because I assumed like the sign meant that it was negative even though it was inconclusive, and she was like, okay, well, thank God. So when I got off the phone with her, I took another one, and this time it came out negative. I was like, okay, well, that defeats that, you know, like I'm fine, obviously not pregnant. And even though I had taken this pregnancy test, you guys, it's so weird to me that I felt different. And I had felt different for a while, but it was only then that I acknowledged that, like, it's so weird then that I'm not pregnant because something feels strange. Like, something feels weird in my body and I feel off. So fast forward a little bit, I think that I probably worked at Target for a grand total of 5 or 6 months. But this would have been 3 months into me not having a period. Again, another month without a period, still confused, still don't know what's going on. And at this point, I'm a little bit concerned because I've been irregular before, but never this irregular. And I'm starting to get sick every single day. I'm getting sick and I'm not feeling good and I'm not eating because I don't want to eat because everything smells horrible and like it makes me all just so nauseated. It's not good. I like think back to that and it makes me like sick to my stomach. I hated that whole time period. I was also hyper emotional. I didn't really know what was going on. I thought I was just stressed. And this entire time I was making YouTube videos and trying to keep up with this job and, you know, just keeping up with adult life, being a baby myself, like not knowing anything about anything. One day I started bleeding and again, like I'm not gonna get graphic or anything, but it was like spotting at first. I kind of like situated myself to get through the day, you know what I mean? And I was at work, like basically doing my thing, and I kept feeling these horrible pains in my lower abdomen. Feeling like I need to go to the bathroom. I'm just not feeling good. I'm feeling crampy. And at first I was like, okay, well I haven't had a period in 3 months, so maybe this is just all built up. This is something that, this is the reason I've never known whether or not to come out with this story, because like I at the time was so shocked. I was so confused when it happened. But when I went to the bathroom, and I don't know how to explain this without being graphic, basically, I had like bled through everything I had put down, and I hadn't like used a panty liner. I'd used like a fully absorbent pad, you know what I mean? And it had been like 2 hours. My khakis for the day were completely ruined, and it was really bad, and it was so gross and like not nice, and I was so like, this is the strangest thing. Like, I've never had something like this happen before. And in the moment, I was like, is there something wrong? Like, am I dying? It was like that much. Not pleasant at all. So, of course, I had to go home. I had a male supervisor at the time, so I didn't explain the situation fully. But he was kind of like, okay, well, if you're feeling bad tomorrow, like, just call. And I didn't feel good the whole night. Like, it was really similar with the heavy bleeding, but I don't know how to explain it to you guys. Like, I kept brushing it off. I kept thinking, you're fine, like, you're okay. I'm really good at explaining situations away in my head. And I went to bed, and the next morning when I woke up, I was in so much pain, I could not get out of bed. And I called my husband because he was at work for the day, and I was like, I can't even move. I cannot even stand. I'm in so much pain because like I stood out of bed and it hurt so badly in my lower stomach. I literally fell back over. And I'm not like, I think that a lot of people say that they have a high pain tolerance, but I literally have the highest pain tolerance. If I get sick or hurt, I don't cry. You know what I mean? Like, this was so bad. And like my husband knows that I have a very high pain tolerance. He knows I don't get upset when I'm sick or easily, and I was bawling. I was in so much pain, and I wound up calling my mom, and I told her everything. And my mom didn't know about any of the symptoms I had experienced prior to this, like me thinking maybe I was pregnant for a grand total of 2 seconds, you know, taking the pregnancy test and stuff. I didn't want to scare my parents, and at the time, like, I'll be honest, I wasn't really close with my family. Like, we had kind of had a falling out. And so I call her, I'm bawling, and she tells me about this story. Before she had me, she had gotten pregnant, and the baby got caught in the fallopian tubes. And so it was this whole intensive procedure. Like, she could have died. The baby, the fetus, obviously didn't make it. And so I was terrified, and she was like, you've got to go to a hospital, like, right now. Like, I think from what you're describing to me, that is what's happening. And so I immediately go to the emergency room, and I'm bawling, like I'm so scared. At this point, the reality that maybe I'd been pregnant this whole time and didn't know was just so intense for me. And then even more intense to think like I could die. Like, it was really scary. I was all alone. I was very scared. It was really simple. I got called back. They gave me painkillers. They took my blood, and I was pregnant according to my blood tests. It's just really hard, you know, because like I think I knew on some level, and like that's really scary because I didn't admit it to myself. And then I always think like, what if I could have done something? But I know like it wouldn't have changed anything. I know I couldn't have done anything to prevent any of this. I haven't actually like said this out loud, and God knows how long, so it's hard. And obviously it's already so hard. It's like I'm 19 and going through this situation where I didn't even know this. Like, I didn't even know I was pregnant, and when I realized it, like, it was one of those things where I was happy for about 0.2 seconds, and then I was terrified because I knew what my mom had told me. And all I'm thinking is like, is there some way to remedy this? Is there like some way we can fix all of this and everything can just be fine, and I can just like incubate this tiny person in the proper way? Like, that's all I'm thinking, right? But they wind up sending me down the hall. I have like the, what is it called? What am I thinking of? Ultrasound. Why I could not think of that word, it's beyond me. I had the ultrasound done and there was nothing. And that really confused me because I had obviously tested positive. And my doctor, like, this is one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through. And to think, like, my husband couldn't even get off of work. Like, the army wouldn't even, like, let him come to me in the midst of all of this. The fact that this human being that was my doctor for the short period of time that he was so cruel. I just want to go back and like hold my own hand through all of this, because I've never been in a situation where someone was so heartless and so mean, because he's, you know, he's doing the ultrasound and he like is looking around and he's like, okay, well, there's no like fetus in here, you know, you're empty. And I was kind of like, well, what does that mean? Like, why would I test positive then? And he was like, well, you were, but obviously you're not anymore, so it doesn't matter. I'm beside myself, and I cannot believe this person just like cast me aside. Like, it was so mean, you know. There's like being thoughtless and being careless, and then there's the way that this guy treated me, because then he goes on to tell me that he doesn't know if it's like correlated, but there's like a really big ruptured cyst on my left ovary and one forming on my right. So we had to go through testing for that. Basically, I had to go back a few more times after that to make sure things were like healing normally and whatnot, but that was what I don't know what caused anything, because I was never told, and that's like the saddest thing about all of this. I'm so uneducated on what happened to me because of this entire situation with the doctors. Like, nobody told me anything. I would never have even known for certain that I was pregnant, unless very sadly, and again, this is something that's just so hard to talk about, I did pass the pregnancy. Let's go with that, because I don't like to think about it. And I obviously wasn't very far along, but it was a very ugly process. It was a very not nice process. And looking back on it, my body felt so differently when I was pregnant, and it's so crazy to me. And it makes me so certain, like, I know women who are pregnant now, and I just want to be like, how did you know? Like, when was that like moment that you knew? Because I feel like I knew from so early on, and like my body knew, and my hormones were so in connect with everything else, and my actual brain didn't catch up for so long, you know, like, it wasn't even something I could recognize. It wasn't even something that peeing on a stick could recognize. And I know pregnancy tests aren't, you know, 100% accurate, so I can't really blame myself for that one. It is something that happened about 2 years ago, and it took me a really long time to cope. Friends and family were really upset when I talked about it on social media. I was told by a lot of people that it's not a big deal to be quiet about it, and I don't feel like I mourned very publicly. It was very much so an internal thing, and it was something where Tyler and I didn't even talk to each other about it for a really long time. It was so hard, and neither of us knew what to say. It's probably the hardest thing that I've ever been through, though, and I know that this video is getting really long, and I want to go ahead and end it because there's not much more that I can say, except if you've been through something like this, I send so much love and so much positivity to you, because it's so hard, and I know how lonely it is, and I know how scary it is, and I'm just sending you so much love and so much positivity, and please know I'm always here for you. But that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and go. I hope you guys found something useful out of this video, and I'll talk to you later.